Luan wrote "Kindness Corner" like he was carving it into our lives. Above the gate, the new camera blinked once. Tiny red eye, steady breath. James slid a basket of oranges onto the counter, and his fingers brushed mine, warm enough to keep my body from flinching. I stared at the first care card in the basket. A paper orange, 2 eyelashes, a smile. Anna's handwriting, big and careful. Wishing you a peaceful morning. From Hill Fruits. My throat tightened. Yesterday, fear tried to move into our home. Outside the gate, inside my chest, in the way my eyes kept checking the road. Today, my daughter sent joy out with glue, and I decided something right there, with my palms smelling like citrus. Fear can visit. It cannot stay. This morning hadn't begun with panic. It began with glue. Anna sat at the kitchen table, tongue poking out, gluing tiny paper oranges onto cards. Nye clapped beside her, then tried to steal the glue stick like it was candy. James stirred oatmeal at the stove, humming, quiet, stubborn sound, like he was humming a shield around us. "Mom," Anna whispered, holding up a card as if it were fragile glass. "Is this neat?" The letters were crooked. The feeling wasn't. It's perfect," I said, and the steadiness in my own voice shocked me. James glanced at me. "Today we don't do fear," he murmured. I tried to smile. "We do. Living." He nodded once. "Smile with your shoulders, too?" I rolled my eyes, then felt my shoulders drop anyway. At Hill Fruits, we didn't decorate. We defended our peace. The kindness corner sat by the register. Anna's cards in a basket, blank ones beside them for customers to write back. Our rules were simple and calm, printed large. No photos of children. Please ask the owner for help. Receipts available. A fence around a garden. The first woman who walked in didn't whisper about yesterday. She picked up a card, read it, and her face softened. "Oh," she breathed, like the words had warmed her hands. "This is sweet." "My daughter made them," I said. The woman nodded hard. "Then I'm buying extra." She filled her bag with oranges like she was storing sunshine. Later, a young man left a note on the blank card and slipped it back into the basket. When I peeked, it said, "Your shop feels like home." My eyes stung. Gratitude, not fear. Mr. Hui arrived to ruin it, of course. He squinted at the chalkboard sign. "Kindness Corner? What is this, kindergarten?" Luan smiled politely. "Exactly. In kindergarten, we learn not to be mean." Mr. Hui grabbed a care card to mock it, then froze mid-sentence when he saw the paper orange with eyelashes. He cleared his throat and shoved the card into his pocket like it hadn't reached him at all. Even gossip men have hearts. They just hide them behind noise. At noon, the resort vehicle rolled up. My stomach tightened on reflex. Ms. Trang stepped inside. Crisp, professional, eyes that missed nothing. She paused at the kindness corner, lifted one of Anna's cards, and read it. For the first time ever, she smiled. "This," she said softly, tapping the card, "is why guests like your baskets." She handed James a sheet. "Sealed crate verification codes." Next week, our driver picks up at your gate. Less exposure. James nodded. Thank you. Miss Trang looked at me. Good decision keeping children home, she said. A happy shop is a safe shop. Then she added, as casually as someone ordering tea, we want Hill Fruits for our Christmas brunch. A display table, local story feature. A display table meant trust. It also meant more eyes. James squeezed my hand under the counter. We can, he whispered. I swallowed. We can. Ms. Trang left, heels clicking like punctuation, and for a few hours, the shop felt light, like we'd pushed back the dark with nothing but kindness and receipts. Then the bell over the door jingled again. A man I didn't recognize stepped in. Clean shoes, no village dust, no greeting. His eyes didn't go to the fruit. They went to the camera, then to the kindness corner. My spine went tight. He picked up a care card, turned it slowly. Cute, he said, flat. Luan drifted closer. You buying fruit? The man slid his hand into his pocket. My mind flashed sharp, ugly pictures. He pulled out a phone. He lifted it, not at the oranges, at Anna's handwriting. Okay, sir, I said, voice calm, only because my fear had turned cold. No photos. He didn't lower the phone. It's just paper. James appeared at my side without a sound. Not loud, just there. Put it away, James said. The man finally looked at him. Really looked. And I saw recognition. Not of James's name, but of James as a barrier. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Hill Fruits is getting attention, he murmured. Attention attracts problems. Then he set something on the counter. A folded sheet. Official-looking stamp. Heavy paper. Notice, he said. Read it. And he walked out. The bell jingled. Too cheerful. Too innocent. James unfolded the paper. His eyes moved fast. His face went still. Across the top in bold, temporary closure order. Health and safety violation. Fake, James said, low. They want you to shut your own door. My mouth went dry. Because at the bottom, someone had written in pen, casual, like a grocery list. Tell the little orange girl to stop writing. My blood turned to ice. Anna was at home, safe, supposedly. Outside, across the glass, a black SUV sat parked, engine off, waiting like a shadow that had learned patience. James was already moving. Bag, he said. Now, we go home. My fingers fumbled for my keys. The shop phone rang. One sharp ring, then another. James lifted the receiver. He didn't get to speak. A voice slid through, low and smiling. Turn off the light or we'll come turn it off for you. James's eyes met mine. That look that says, don't panic, but be ready. Then the line went dead. Outside, the black SUV's headlights flicked on. Slow, deliberate, pointed straight at our gate. Folks, my heart is pounding. Before we see the rescue, please hit subscribe. The headlights stayed on. Two white beams pinned our gate like we were insects on a board. James didn't argue with fear. He moved around it, fast, steady. He slid the fake closure notice into his pocket like it was evidence. not a curse. Then he took my hand. "Keys," he said. My fingers shook so hard the keys bit my skin. The shop phone rang again. James didn't answer this time. He snapped a photo of the caller ID, then flipped the shop sign to closed, like he was shutting a door in someone's face. Luan was already at the window, staring at the SUV. "That's not Mr. Hai," he whispered. "That's not anyone." James's jaw tightened. "Good, then they're here for one thing. Mimi, my kids, our light." He turned to Luan. "Take a picture of the plate. From inside. Don't be a hero." Luan swallowed and nodded, phone raised with shaking hands. James looked at me. His voice dropped soft, almost tender. "Diep, listen to me. You're not going to fall apart. Not today." I tried to breathe. I tried to be the mother my daughters thought I was. "Anna," I croaked. "She's at home." "Yeah, I know." His hand squeezed mine. "And we're going to her. Now." We didn't drive like we were running. We drove like we were refusing to give them the satisfaction. But my heart pounded so loud, I could hear it over the engine. Every shadow on the roadside felt like a body. Every motorbike behind us felt like a threat. James didn't look back once. He called Officer Thu with one thumb while he drove with the other hand, like he'd been born for pressure. "Fake closure order," he said, calm. "Threat against our child. Black SUV. Headlights at the gate. Luan's getting the plate now." A pause. Then Officer Thu's voice, low and sharp through the speaker. "Don't go home alone. Drive to the junction by the banyan tree. I'm sending a unit." My mouth went dry. "A unit," I whispered. James glanced at me, eyes steady. "It means we're not whispering anymore," he said. "We're answering." At the banyan tree, the air smelled like dust and sap. We waited with the engine running, and then a small thing happened that broke my heart open. A neighbor woman stepped out of the darkness with a flashlight and a scarf around her shoulders. Behind her came another, then another. Not gossip faces, protective faces. Village Chief Huang arrived last, holding his phone like it was a weapon. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need a story. He looked at my shaking hands and read the truth off my skin. "They think this is the old days," he said quietly. "When a woman is frightened, she shuts her door and apologizes for breathing." His eyes lifted to James. "Not today." Behind us, a police motorbike rolled in, then a small car. Officer Thu stepped out, cap low, expression controlled, like she'd put her feelings in a locked drawer so she could do her job. She didn't waste a word. "Who called?" she asked. James showed her the photo. "Good," she said. Then she looked at me. Her voice softened by half a degree. "Your children are safe?" "They're home, Pa," I whispered. "With the neighbor girl?" Officer Thu nodded once. "We're going to keep it that way." Then she did something that surprised me. She picked up one of Anna's care cards from my bag, the one I'd tucked in without thinking, like a talisman, and she read it. Her mouth didn't smile, but her eyes changed. Like something human flickered under the uniform. "Wishing you a peaceful morning," she read. "From Hill Fruits." She handed it back to me like it mattered. "It does," she said simply. "Now, we catch the ones who hate that." We didn't go home in silence. We went home in a small convoy of stubborn kindness, neighbors behind us, Officer Thu in front. When our house came into view, my chest clenched so hard it hurt. The porch light was on, and in the doorway, small, barefoot, clutching a paper orange crown, Anna stood like a tiny lighthouse. The second she saw me, she ran. "Mom!" Her arms hit my waist and held on like she was afraid I might vanish. I dropped to my knees and grabbed her so tight I felt her ribs. Nye toddled in circles behind her, clapping at nothing and everything, as if her body could clap away danger. I buried my face in Anna's hair. It smelled like soap and glue. "Did someone come?" I whispered. Anna's voice shook, but she tried to be brave like James. "A car stopped far," she said. But Auntie Mai closed the curtains. She said, "We are not a show." My throat burned. I looked up and saw Auntie Mai standing behind Anna, arms crossed, eyes hard, not scared, angry. Village Chief Puang's voice rumbled from behind me. "Good girl," he told her. James crouched, hands on Anna's shoulders. "Listen, my brave orange maker," he said softly. "If anyone ever asks about your cards, you tell Mom or me. No secrets, okay?" Anna nodded so hard her paper crown slid sideways. "Okay." Then she blurted, voice tiny, "Did they not like kindness?" My heart snapped. James's voice turned warm as bread. "They don't like it because it works," he said. "That'll be all." Officer Thu stayed outside. Not because she didn't care, because she did. She and 2 officers moved around our gate without drama, checking angles, checking footprints, checking the road like it was a page they could read. Luan arrived breathless 5 minutes later with his phone held out like a trophy. "Plate," he said. "Clear." Officer Thu looked at it, then looked toward the road. "Good," she said again. That word, good, felt like a rope thrown to me in deep water. She called someone. Low voice, fast words. Then she turned to James. "They won't come back to your gate tonight," she said. "Not if they're smart." "And if they're not?" James asked. Officer Thu's eyes were flint. "Then we'll meet them." My skin prickled. I didn't want a fight. I wanted my daughters asleep, mouths open, safe dreams. But I also wanted something new inside me. I wanted the fear to learn my name and stop. An hour later, while Anna sat at the kitchen table, fixing her paper crown, and Nye tried to lick glue off her fingers, the phone buzzed again. James answered this time. On speaker, in front of Officer Thu, the voice came through smooth and low. "Turn off the light," it said again, like a lullaby for cowards. James didn't raise his voice. "Which light?" he asked. A pause, then amused. "The shop light, the one that tells people you're still open." James looked at me. I understood instantly. They didn't care about health orders. They cared about the symbol. James's thumb hovered. Then he spoke, calm as stone. "I'll turn it off," he said. "Come collect your little victory." My breath caught. Officer Thu's head turned sharply. "Good," she mouthed. This time, not gentle. "Ready." The line clicked dead. Anna frowned at us. "Mom, why is everyone whispering like the movies?" I swallowed. "Because grown-ups are trying to be brave," I said. Anna considered that, then slid a care card toward me with serious eyes. It read, "Be brave. I love you." I nearly broke right there in my own kitchen. We didn't go to the shop. We watched it. Officer Thu positioned her people near the road, tucked into darkness like patience. Village Chief Puong sat on our porch with 2 neighbors, sipping tea like they were guarding a sacred place. And James stood by the window, arms crossed, eyes on the distance. I stood beside him, holding Anna's card so tight the paper bent. The night stretched. Then finally, headlights. A black SUV rolled toward Hill Fruits, slow and sure of itself. It stopped at our gate. A figure stepped out, and something in me tried to collapse. But James's hand caught my wrist. "No," he whispered. "Stay with me." The figure moved toward the shop door, carrying another sheet of paper, like a magician returning for applause. Then Officer Thu's voice cut the night like a clean blade. "Stop right there!" Flashlights snapped on. The figure froze. The SUV's engine coughed, trying to wake up. Too late. Another police vehicle slid in behind it, quiet and final. Officer Thu walked forward, not running, not shouting, just certainty. "Fake documents," she said. "Threatening a child. Intimidation." The figure's shoulders sagged like the weight of consequences finally landed. I couldn't hear everything after that. My ears filled with my own blood. But I saw the important part. The darkness did not win the road tonight. It got surrounded. It got named. It got taken away. James exhaled, a long breath that sounded like a door unlocking. I didn't realize I was crying until Anna wiped my cheek with her tiny hand and whispered, "Mom, your face is leaking." I laughed, half sob, half sunlight. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's relief." The next morning, Hill Fruits opened again. Not with trembling, with purpose. Officer Thu taped an official notice beside the fake one. Real stamp, real authority. This order was fraudulent. Report any intimidation. Ms. Trang from the resort sent a message that made my hands shake for a different reason. We stand with Hill Fruits. Driver pickup confirmed. Deposit transferred. And the kindness corner basket? It overflowed. People didn't just buy oranges. They left notes like prayers. "You are not alone. Our village is watching too." Strong mothers raise strong towns. Mr. Hui came in, eyes darting to the official notice, then to my face. He cleared his throat awkwardly. I didn't know," he mumbled. I handed him a care card without a word. This one said, "You can start over." His mouth twitched like he hated how much he needed that sentence. He shoved it into his pocket and bought oranges without bargaining. Luan leaned close to me and whispered, Kindness is bullying them back. I snorted, and for the first time in days, the sound didn't feel fragile. It felt strong. That night, when we locked up, James didn't scan the road with panic. He looked at the shop, our shop, and his voice softened. "They wanted you to turn off the light," he said. I nodded, key in the lock, heart steady. "So?" he asked. I reached up and flicked the light on. The warm glow spread across the window, across the kindness corner, across Anna's smiling oranges. I leaned into James's shoulder and whispered the truth I'd earned. Let them watch, because this light wasn't a target anymore. It was a promise, a bright shop, a brave mother, a gentle man who stayed, and a little girl at home, writing kindness into the future, one smiling orange at a time.